I went back in our interviews with Will Dawkins and Michael Winger because I asked them specifically about Bradley Beal. Dawkins wound up being a little bit more of a, let's call it a test case. It wasn't meant to be. I missed on Dawkins because what I tried to do, and I'll peel back the curtain a little bit here, right? If I had asked them, are you going to trade Bradley Beal? They're not going to answer that question. It does not behoove them, and at the time, they did not know. Will Dawkins had, now almost famously, flown in the night before. They hadn't had any meetings as a group yet. The only conversations that Winger and Dawkins and Leonsis and Schlenk and Wes Unseld Jr. and John Thompson and anybody else in that front office had were involved in the hiring process and what time to show up. That was probably like an email or a text. Hey, make sure you're at this place by this time tomorrow. Okay, cool. Got it. Thanks. Excellent. See you there. They definitely did not coordinate on what they were wearing because they all wore the exact same blue suit, and I made fun of them for it relentlessly. It was hilarious. Excellent. Beautiful suit. Just really funny when they all wear the exact same one, or what looks to be the exact same one. Anyway, point is, at the time, all I could really ask them, and what I did was try to give them permission to answer the question of, how do you make that decision? How do you get to the point where you trade a Bradley Beal? Or in Dawkins' case in Oklahoma City, a Russell Westbrook? Or in Winger's case in L.A., Blake Griffin, or even Tobias Harris? How do you get to the point with a star player who means a lot to the franchise, and especially with Dawkins in Oklahoma City with Westbrook, someone who is so beloved in Oklahoma City? How do you make the decision to trade them knowing there could be backlash or that, it might hurt your basketball team in the immediate, but that realistically you've capped out and you're not going to be able to win with them, and you're probably not going to be able to acquire the pieces that you need to win with them? Obviously, Durant leaving was the piece they needed. Good luck recruiting someone, a free agent NBA star, to play in Oklahoma City, as great as that organization is. They have to draft guys and keep them there and just hope they do a good enough job and win enough that they don't want to leave. So, all that said, I tried to give them a permission structure to answer the question. Will Dawkins didn't exactly take the bait on it, but this is what he said when I asked him about the process of what would go into considering trading Bradley Beal.
No, that's a very fair question. I will say this, though. There's no decision to be made on Bradley Beal. Like, Brad is under contract. He's a wizard. He's a star player. We're happy to have him. And, it's appealing in the job walking in. You have a player like Brad Beal. So I've talked to a lot of people about Brad, Russell, and
Sure.
I obviously have that relationship. Scott Brooks, Mark Dagnall was actually in Florida with him, our head coach in Oklahoma City, and then Billy Donovan. And they all speak so highly of Brad as a person and the community awards and all he does there. So I can't wait to get to meet him. From afar, I appreciate him and his excellence on the court. So there's no decision to be made on Brad Beal. But in terms of when the timing comes on that stuff, you just got to have good relationships with people. I was the guy picking up Russell from the airport and driving around in my car, and then became his player development guy that he was beating up every morning. So when you're going through that stuff and you have real relationships with people, you can have those kind of conversations when you're impacting their life professionally and personally. So, again, I just want to meet everyone here, not just Brad, build that relationship, and the decisions will take care of itself. But you want the players to know that you're being honest, you're keeping information tight, and we're working together no matter what happens.
The other wind-up meeting was going, hey, Mark, as in Mark Bartlestein, the agent for Bradley Beal, where does Bradley want to go? Phoenix? Crap. Okay, we'll call Phoenix. And unfortunately, that was the box that Will Dawkins and Michael Winger walked into. That was not their decision. The no trade clause just put them in that spot that they had to do what they could to get the most out of Phoenix. And luckily, Phoenix had to play along from a salary standpoint. They had to give up Chris Paul and Landry Shamet because there's the money match rules in the NBA. I mean, you can't just the Suns can't be like, give us Beal. And the Wizards go, okay, here you go. They have to get something back to make the math work. But the Suns also were at least willing to play along by giving up the remainder of their draft capital that they had left after the Kevin Durant trade, a couple of pick swaps, some second-round picks. If I was the Suns, I would have just been like, he's coming here, man. We're not giving you jack. Take the salary and buzz off. I guess you want to play nice. You want the agent to be happy. Maybe Bartelstein's like, hey, like don't screw them over. Maybe Bradley was like, look, I'm not trying to screw the Wizards over. Like, make it as fair of a trade as you can. Maybe just for relationships between like James Jones and the Suns and Winger and Dawkins here, like they don't want to be bad trade partners. I don't know why they gave in on giving up anything. But it seemed like the Wizards got all they could because there wasn't anything else to get from Phoenix. Unfortunately, they couldn't leverage anything against Phoenix, or they couldn't leverage anything else from anywhere because they couldn't try to get a third team involved, whatever, because Beal said, like, I'm going to Phoenix, that's it. So that's that. So once Dawkins, though, was like, hey, there's no decision to be made on Bradley Beal, and gave me kind of the runaround on it. Well, respect. I get it. It's day one on the job. You don't want to ruffle any feathers. I asked Winger a different way. I asked Winger, and I told him, like, Will said there is no decision to be made on Bradley Beal, but there's a decision to be made on every player. That is the nature of an NBA offseason, to which Winger agreed and gave me what I thought was a pretty insightful answer on what goes into trading a superstar like this. And really, this to me, when he gave this answer, told me in that moment they were going to trade Bradley Beal, whether Winger knew it yet or not.
Great question. I'll just stick to Brad specifically. When you get to a point in time when you, I guess, in many cases, relent to deciding that we cannot win a championship as constituted. The last thing you ever want to do is trade away a player of that caliber, particularly if he's under contract, because you're not at risk of him leaving you.
Right.
It's incredibly hard to get players like that on your team. Every team every year wants a superstar. There's just not many of them, and so the last thing you want to do is move a guy for the sake of just change. At his level.
Yeah.
But ultimately, why something like that ends up happening is because you've studied everything there is to study. You've pursued every scenario there is to pursue, and you've just come to the realization that, man, no matter what we do, we're just never going to get over this line. We're just never going to get over this particular hurdle, and your last resort is to move a guy of that level. And so anytime you see a guy like that traded, it's because the team and the player generally together have decided that we're just not going to win together. And so you team, for the sake of your future, why don't you move me somewhere else, and me for the sake of wanting to win, I'd like to go pursue this other opportunities somewhere else. And so it's almost invariably in pursuit of winning. But I mean, it's a last resort.
I love that last sentence from Winger. It's in the pursuit of winning. And I think that's the important thing for anybody that has any reservations. And look, I understand that most Wizards fans were ready to kick Brad out years ago, and that's just the reality. People can get mad at the media for that, but all we're doing is saying the same thing fans are. We just have microphones. And on some level, it's math. You just look at the situation, which is why, by the way, it didn't take Michael Winger and Will Dawkins very long to look at this Wizards roster and look at their plans and look at their options and go, wow. Listen to the pain and the exhaustion in his voice when he says that. You just get to the point where you're like, crap, there's nothing else we can do. We have irreconcilable differences. We must divorce. It didn't take them long to figure out that's what they needed. Why? Because there was no other way. There was no plan. The one outside shot they had wound up being one ping pong ball away. When Victor Wembanyama, they had the first three and a 6 of 11 chance on the final ping pong ball. And it did not come up with their number. That was the only way. And even then, is the Wembanyama timeline and the Beal timeline the same? Probably not. Probably would have traded Brad anyway. Been let's rebuild around the kid. What else can we get? So at the end of the day, like, it's actually pretty simple. They had no choice. And while it would have been in bad taste to say it on that day, what changed between them, saying that stuff then, oh, there's no decision to be made on Beal, and now they just got together and had the meetings and they all looked at each other and be like, we're all on the same page, right? Yep. Okay. You all are smart. That's why we hired you. Excellent. Moving forward. And so they did.
This is the Hoffman Show on the Team 980 and the Odyssey app.